Let's roll, baby. Welcome in a Thursday East Coast bias. There's 2/3 of the crew back by popular demand. Jastremski alongside my buddy Raheem Palmer. Joe House on location. We thought he might be joining us from the beautiful grounds of Augusta National. Augusta National got in the way, so we are gracious enough to have Anthony Dabbundo filling in for Joe House. And Dabbundo, I'm not going to lie, dude. We are now a couple of days removed from Monday's national championship game. It was another thrilling win for Race to 10. We were happy about that. It was a very painful loss for the Houston Cougars. I still cannot believe that Houston basically doesn't get a shot off at the end of regulation. They basically get, one or two shots over the final 2.5 minutes of the game. You talk about painful ways to go and lose a championship, buddy. That's got to be right at the top of the list, you know?
Yeah, I'll be honest. A pretty disappointing showing from Houston half-court offense, but I want to credit Florida's defense because I think there's a little bit too much one way against kind of the Houston offense. And Florida's defense in back-to-back games and what they were able to do in those last 10-ish minutes, really impressive stuff, and something that we had said we were more worried about their offense in closing situations and in half-court situations, but their defense came to play, and their defense is why they ultimately became national champs because, it wasn't like the Auburn game when Clayton went God mode or the Texas Tech game when they hit these clutch threes. It was kind of just a slow, eventual hold on. It wasn't like Florida was getting all these great looks either. So credit to the Florida defense, credit to Todd Golden. A coach that I've always loved. It's a weird situation because I loved Golden at San Francisco. I liked him at Florida, but then just through betting and not being a big fan of this specific team, I was like, oh, kind of anti-Florida. And sure enough, they stick it to me and all of us really with the wins over the last 2 weeks.
So, Dream, if you would have told me before the start of the game, the stat line for Walter Clayton would be exactly what it was on Monday night, I would have proclaimed that Houston's going to win this game by double digits, that Florida was just going to have no answers in order to go and win the game. And I think to Anthony's point, their defense and the way they were able to get after it in the second half, and I think the foul game obviously worked to their advantage. The idea that they were able to go and get themselves to the charity stripe. That's why we're talking, I think, about Florida as national champs, despite the fact the best player in the tournament for them really didn't do a whole lot.
Well, I won't say he didn't do a whole lot. I think he started making plays for other people in the second half.
Fair. But from a scoring sense, though, Raheem, he didn't have the sort of eye-popping wow moments that we saw in a lot of these games. Really didn't have that here.
I mean, he didn't necessarily have that, but you got to remember, it was, 63-60, and he hit the game-tying three with a couple minutes to go. So he had his moments. But the one thing I want to highlight, that stood out for me is that in the first half, it was a very free-flowing half with not a lot of fouls. And in the second half, you come out and, Houston's a very physical defense, and you're not allowed to play as physical as they did in the first half. And I think you could say the same about Florida as well, because, they were calling a ton of fouls. Both teams were in the bonus with like 15 minutes to go. So I think that had an impact on the game as well. But you got to give Florida credit. Houston, they didn't get up a shot for the last 2 minutes of the game. And I think, that's kind of unacceptable at the end of the day. So if you were on Houston plus 1.5, you probably caught one of the roughest beats that I've seen.
Yeah, Dabbundo, I'm still hurting, man. I'm still hurting, buddy boy.
The thing is, I said on Monday, Houston does a great job of denying guards the ball, which they really did with Clayton. And I think Florida's half-court offense is really going to struggle. And 30 minutes of the game, I'm like, all right, I feel like I did my job here. We got that part right. We're feeling good. Houston looks great. Raheem's right, though. The fouls definitely changed things. Tugler and Francis getting into foul trouble. And even Roberts, like all the Houston big rebounders and defenders at the rim, all getting in foul trouble, made it easier for Florida's bigs to start getting decent looks at the rim, and that kind of changed things. But ultimately, yeah, it'll be Florida's defense that I remember from this Final Four, these two games down the stretch run.
So hats off to Florida. They won back-to-back titles with Billy Donovan and Joakim Noah and Al Horford and all those guys. It's been a while, a little bit of a gap, but now Florida national champs for 2024-2025. And listen, I'll say this about the NCAA tournament. It was a blasé first weekend, to put it mildly. It got a little bit better in the round of 16, round of 8. we had ourselves 2 outstanding Final Four games, and you had a national championship come down to the final seconds. That's basically all you could ask for in San Antonio on Saturday and Monday. And now we move along and we transition to what we're going to see on the court starting next week in the NBA play-in and into the NBA postseason. Before we get into some of these teams, though, Raheem, well, there's one I want to get into right out of the gate. And you need to help me out. Maybe, Dabbundo, you can do the same. Mike Malone has been one of the best coaches in the NBA for the better part of the last 5 to 6 years. This is a guy who won an NBA championship just 2 years ago. Not that long ago. We're talking about Denver and Malone winning a title. He's widely regarded as one of the most successful coaches the league has to offer. Raheem, the Nuggets are pulling a page out of the hockey playbook. They're firing their coach with a week to go in the regular season. What is that?
Yeah, with 3 games to go in the regular season, they decided to fire Mike Malone, which is, absolutely insane. They also fired their general manager in Calvin Booth. And, there's a lot of people who are looking at the Denver Nuggets roster and you say, you know what, Calvin Booth needed to go. But to fire Mike Malone, it's extremely shocking. And, I think one of the things that you're seeing when you look at the rumor mill and everything like that is that this had been brewing. It just seems like, winning has covered up a lot of issues. And it felt like, Mike Malone, he came out the other day and said that he couldn't get to the players anymore. He's telling them they need to do a better job at defending and, they're not listening. And, the interesting thing is that I don't think this happens if Jamal Murray is healthy. So I think, it's very rough. I totally don't understand it to make this move now with 3 games left in the regular season. I don't know how this puts them in a better spot going into the postseason. But, the NBA is crazy. When you look at there's multiple teams who won the championship from 2020 to 2023. Steve Kerr is the only one who's had his job. Everybody else has been fired. You're talking about Mike Budenholzer. He won a championship. He got fired. Mike Malone, he won a championship. He got fired. Frank Vogel, he won a championship with the Lakers. He's gotten fired. Steve Kerr is the only one left. So nobody is safe at this point in time. And at this point in time, Oklahoma City, they had a monster season, but they're a 3-game losing streak away from him getting fired at this point in time. It's just like they're just throwing drama. This is wrestling at this point.
I will say, as somebody who watches a lot of European soccer, I'm enjoying how much this is supposedly crazy because it's not usual in the NBA, but in soccer, this stuff happens all the time. You quote unquote lose the locker room after a 5-6 game stretch, you're out. Borussia Dortmund are in the Champions League quarterfinals. They've by all stretches had an up and down season, but they just fired their coach mid-season and nobody bats an eye. So I think it's interesting kind of looking at it from different perspectives. Of course,
it happens in EuroLeague basketball as well. And you look at some of those international basketball teams. If Real Madrid, they had a 3 or 4 game losing streak, you out the window. And so it's it's just a different culture.
But they do this to Dabbundo in hockey a lot. You'll see this in hockey, mid-season firings, end-of-year firings. You look at the other 3 big sports, though. This doesn't happen. I am not one to look at this move now and say, yeah, this is going to spark a team. I always go back to this example. Jack McKeon took over for the Florida Marlins back in 2003, long time ago. They made a managerial change. He took over, traded Jack, making all sorts of crazy moves, sparked the team, made the playoffs, won the World Series. It's very rare that in the NFL or in the NBA, you're going to go and make that sort of mid-season, end-of-year coaching change, and it's going to spark your team. The history doesn't necessarily side with it. You know what I mean?
Right, but now we're rewriting history, right? Are we changing course on this? Is this going to become more common? I think there's going to be bigger discussions about how much does the coaches matter. I think it was always the downstream effect of it being essentially the player empowerment era was always going to come to this point where coaches just recycle. I was thinking, Raheem, what you mentioned, even a lot of the coaches who lost in the finals have also been moved on from. Nick Nurse, 2019, also, they won, he's out. So you don't really get the same leeway you used to anymore. And I think that's just part of, if the players are going to move all the time, we might as well just also have the coaches do the same thing. And
but I also think there's not, when you look at the new salary cap, the new CBA, the second apron, I think there's a lot more urgency now because, a lot of these teams don't have the flexibility to be able to move off players the way they used to. Teams are afraid of going into the tax and paying that repeater tax. So now it's like, all right, look, I got to make a spark somewhere. I got to make a change. It may have to come from the head coaching position since, you're not going to see as much movement due to the second April.
Okay. Denver trying to stay out of that play-in now as they get ready for the final games of the regular season, Raheem. They're 47-32 on the year. They got a couple of games left. Where do we stand on them in evaluating them from the rest of the teams within the Western Conference? Clearly, they are not on that top level. I don't think anybody can make that argument now between the roster, the lack of depth, firing their coach. I like them less now than I did a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and I was kind of down on them to begin with. But are we looking at the Denver Nuggets as a team that's destined to be bounced in the first round, even with one of the, if not the best player in the world on their team?
I mean, obviously, it's all going to come down to matchups in the Western Conference. I think that's the biggest thing that we all know because, any of these teams can be either one of these teams. I mean, you're looking at 2 through 8 is separated by 2 games. So until we see the matchups, I don't want to, say they're destined to be bounced out of the first round. But at the end of the day, when you look at this Denver Nuggets roster, it doesn't seem like Jamal Murray is healthy. It doesn't seem like he's on the path to be playing in the postseason. And if they don't have Jamal Murray, they're missing a key point, a key player who, is part of their offense in terms of their pick and roll with Jokic and Murray. And, a big part of them winning is their execution in the clutch. Without Jamal Murray, I think he hurts that. And you also have to remember the bench is bad. It's downright abysmal. And you're playing Russell Westbrook a ton of minutes, and he's not reliable. So I'm not high on this Nuggets team at all. And at this point in time, you have to ask, at what point in time do one of these international players say, you know what, enough is enough? And, Jokic has earned the right to say, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, trade me, because it's clear that this front office has not put a championship roster around.
Okay, Raheem, mention matchup. What would be the matchup still from a Denver standpoint where they could go and have success in the first round, if there's one?
I mean, I think everybody's looking at Houston. Obviously the Nuggets are in the 4th seed right now, but if anybody takes on Houston, you're talking about a team that is 23rd in half-court offensive rating. And if you're taking on Houston, I think any one of these teams could be Houston in the first round.
Well, for them, though, Raheem, it's interesting. Their best chance of matching up with Houston is going to be falling into the play-in, right? Because the way it kind of shakes out in the West, Oklahoma City is the 1 seed. That's locked up. Houston is the 2 seed. That's locked up. So, yeah, I would say for Denver, I'd rather play Houston than the Lakers. I'd rather play Houston than Golden State, who we're going to get to in a matter of moments. You'd probably rather play Houston than the Clippers, quite frankly. But that means you're going to go and lose a game or two here along the way. And if you go and lose that playing game, Dabbundo, then all of a sudden Oklahoma City's staring you in the face 1-8, and it's good night the lights.
Right. I think that's my question. Like, all right, let's play either or. Would you take the Warriors or the Nuggets if they played heads up? You
tell me Golden State, Denver in a first-round series, I'm taking Golden State.
All right, Lakers or Denver, first round, who you taking?
Lakers.
I'm taking at this point in time. Without Jamal Murray, I think you probably can almost take anybody.
Clippers or Nuggets, you would take Clippers.
Yeah, but I wouldn't feel great. I wouldn't. But you know what, though, Dabbundo? I wouldn't feel great about that. Despite, in theory, the coaching advantage they should have with Ty Lue and Jeff Van Gundy being on that staff. That's serious heavy hitters from a coaching standpoint. I think the Clippers have one of the best coach teams, Raheem, in the league. The concerns I have about Leonard getting hurt at any moment and Harden absolutely turning into a zero come playoff time, that'd be a scary series to me if I'm the Clippers playing the Nuggets. You know that, Raheem? That would scare me a little bit.
The Clippers have the better defense, though.
They do. Listen, the Clippers be favored in the series. They should win.
The Clippers probably would be favored in that series. Depending on who has home court, of course.
So is there any way, Raheem, Denver is favored in a first-round series? I don't think they are, right? Unless it's Houston.
What's Denver's current odds to make the semifinals? Do they have a no price?
All right, so these numbers are down right now. Okay, but they will put them back up. The point being is this. You can really have a lot of fun dissecting which ones you like and which ones you don't like, and then you could kind of act accordingly. But I think it's fair to say, Raheem, as of right now, you will not have Denver advancing in the first round, correct?
Yeah, as of right now, I'll say that. But I don't want to make a definitive statement.
Of course,
I really want to see.
You reserve the right to change your mind. It's totally
I need to
fair.
see the matchups, because the Western Conference is all matchups right now.
Well, you mentioned those matchups. We're going to try to figure out who's peaking at the right time, who's trending in the wrong direction like Denver, as we look at the West and the madness that we have over the final few days of the regular season. If there's anything that we can maybe pick apart from these East matchups, we'll dive into that too. It is the final home stretch of the NBA regular season. Next week, the fun kind of starts. It does in the West. It doesn't in the Eastern Conference. We'll dive into that. I mean, if you're getting all jazzed up for Atlanta and Orlando, you got some issues. Let's just put it that way. But a lot more NBA discussion coming your way right after this. All right, boys, welcome back. Western Conference, convoluted mess. That's really the best way to put it, 3 through 8. You have basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams separated by 2 games. It's basically 3 through 8. You got Sacramento locked in. It'll play in spot. They're going to be the 9. Maybe they're going to be the 10. We'll have to wait and see. Looks like Dallas, Sacramento is going to be your West playing. Loser goes home. And then we got to figure out what 7-8 looks like. Out of all of these teams, Raheem, and I watched them on Tuesday night, and they absolutely steamrolled the Phoenix Suns. The Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Golden State Warriors. My goodness, out of all of those teams I'm seeing in the Western Conference, I feel you got to feel the best about them going into the postseason. Is that reaction fair, or is it an overreaction?
I think it's fair, but I mean, there were people who tell you that you should feel just as good about the Clippers at this point in time. I mean, if you look at the Clippers right now, the last 2 weeks, 4th in offensive rating, 124 points per 100 possessions, 2nd in defensive rating, and Kawhi Leonard looks pretty healthy. So, I think, there's a number of teams in the West who could win this thing. This thing is wide open. So, I do trust the Warriors. I do think they're for real. Obviously, it feels like Steph Curry has been given new life. But, I can't argue with somebody who said, you know what, I like the Clippers. I can't even argue with somebody who wants to take the Lakers, because when you look at LeBron James, Austin Reeves, Luka Doncic, it's going to be very tough to stop them in the half court in the postseason, regardless of what you feel about their defense. So ultimately, I know I keep saying this, but it's going to come down to matchups.
I guess I have 2 questions. So one is, how much do these last 15 games actually matter historically? Because, we talk about this in baseball a lot. It's like you got to get hot before the playoffs, which really isn't true. It's kind of a myth. Does that matter in basketball? I know it's weird this year, especially because of Jimmy and Luka, but does that matter? And then my second question would kind of be based around this whole situation, which is OKC Lakers just played twice in a week. And, the Lakers were right there in the one, and then they won the other one. Do you take any stock into that, or is that the same thing where it's like, these are just kind of they're just kind of playing out the string on the season? So I think that's the one question, as somebody who's kind of parachuting in here late.
I think it matters for certain teams, and it doesn't matter for other teams. Look at a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers. They've had, the number 1 seed all but wrapped up for much of the year. If you look at their metrics since January 1st, they're 14th in defensive rating, 25th in defensive rebound rate. So it just doesn't seem like this is the same team that we saw earlier on in the year. And then if you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, look at those games against the Lakers. It's not like they were playing everybody. It's not like they were playing for anything. So how much can you take from that? But then you take a team like the Golden State Warriors, who, they make a big trade for Jimmy Butler. They're a completely different team. And, they're in playoff mode already. So, they're trying to avoid the play-in tournament. So I think it's a case-by-case basis. But I think when it comes to some of these top teams, you do see a little bit of slippage, knowing that things don't matter. Look at the Boston Celtics. They're not, they beat the New York Knicks the other night, but they didn't play Jaylen Brown down the stretch. And granted, they still won that game, but you're not getting an A+ effort from the Boston Celtics like you normally would. So you kind of got to take March basketball with a grain of salt. Look at the Sixers. Well, Quentin Grimes is basically...
They don't count. That's not really an NBA.
No, but I'm just saying, March basketball in general, it's very noisy. So you see certain players just, go off. You see certain teams who kind of just relax and get ready for the postseason. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and I think March and early April basketball is fair to compare to September baseball for teams that are out of it, where you don't want to fall in love with what you see over these final handful of games when, you have teams in compromised positions. You have teams thinking about next year. You have teams resting and getting themselves ready for the postseason. Dabbundo, I think in baseball, you can parlay the momentum at times of playing really well down the stretch into getting hot in the postseason. But now with this new playoff format, if you get hot at the right time and all of a sudden you don't have your pitching lined up and you end up losing 2 out of 3 real quick, then that momentum goes completely out the window. Where in the old playoff format, maybe it helped you a little bit more because you were kind of rounding in the form going into a lengthier series where there's not nearly as much variance. I think in the NBA, it means very, very, very little as far as, hey, playing good ball and top-notch ball at the end of the year. I like the Warriors, not because just the element of them being red hot. I like the dynamic of the team that much more. You know what I mean, Dabbundo? Like, this is not, hey, they're hot for the last 3 weeks. They're hot for a couple of months. They added a guy who has playoff pedigree that's going to play with maybe the greatest shooter of all time and his elements of the team that you like, especially defensively. I don't think I'm falling in love with a sample size argument when it comes to a team like Golden State. You get my point?
Right. And I think Raheem mentioned the next question, which I plan to ask, which is we see this all the time. Cleveland, I don't think anybody had Cleveland as a top 2 team. From what I remember, they were like 4th or 5th preseason.
No, I'm going to be honest with you. I think a lot of us did.
No, but
really?
like, Raheem, you liked them. You thought they'd win 50 games. You didn't think they'd be the best. You didn't think they have the best record in the Eastern Conference, did you?
I don't think anybody saw them as 1-1A with Boston.
It's one thing to say, I don't know if we necessarily saw them as having the best record in the Eastern Conference, but I do think we saw them as a top 3 seed.
We were bullish on them. We bet them as overs. We were confident in their overs.
We bet all our overs. We bet them to win the division. I think we were very high on Cleveland.
So I think the question you have to ask yourself is there's one angle you could take to this, which is, okay, Cleveland was this team that came in. I think they were the 4th best odds because I know the Knicks and the Sixers were ahead of Cleveland preseason, which is funny looking back. But they had the 4th best odds. They played at this unbelievable level. Weren't they always going to fall down a little? Like, don't you bake in some priors into that where you say, okay, we saw Cleveland play incredible for 50, 60 games. Then we saw them play not so great for 20. Are we sure? Is Cleveland as much of a juggernaut as people think? Or is it like what JJ just said, the mirage of the March mirage where they kind of take their foot off the gas? And I think
it's the March mirage.
Okay.
I mean,
that's an interesting question, though.
I mean, that's just my personal. I mean, I was very high on Cleveland.
So here's the question with them, though, Raheem. Are they a regular season team? Because I think everybody's trying to figure that out now. Final week of the regular season, they're going to have a cupcake 1-8 matchup. We all know that. They're going to get to the second round. They're probably going to be getting either Indiana or Milwaukee, teams that they know very well in round number 2. And remember, Indiana went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year and has a prolific offensive team. They've also yucked up a lot of close games, and I get hesitation in being all in on the Pacers. But do we look at Cleveland and say, what we've seen in the postseason the last few years, throw it out the window, new head coach, different swagger, different team, learned from it? Or are we going to be concerned if they're, in a 1-1 series against Indiana, going back to Indiana for game 3, does this team have what it takes? Because I need to see it from them in postseason play. I do. Like, I will not be picking them to win the Eastern Conference, full disclosure, until I see somebody knock off Boston. And we'll get to Boston, the concern I have with Jaylen Brown that you mentioned earlier. But you understand why that but factor is still there with the Cavaliers for me?
I definitely understand. I mean, and you're a New Yorker, obviously. I mean, you saw the New York Knicks absolutely, bully the Cleveland Cavaliers a couple years ago. But I do think this is a different team. I think Evan Mobley is a different player. And I think when you go from J.B. Bickerstaff to Kenny Atkinson, I think that changes a lot. So I'm putting some respect on their name.
Okay, so there's Cleveland. Now there's Boston, Raheem. Listen, I watched their game against the Knicks on Tuesday night. They didn't have Al Horford celebrating the Florida championship. They didn't even want to put him on the injury report. They should have just put old or celebrating on the injury report as far as Al Horford is concerned. But he had a moment. He had a moment on Monday night. And I guess, the Celtics don't need him the final couple of games of the regular season. So be it. Enjoy. Brown's injury, though, I think has got to be concerning from this standpoint. You mentioned the amount of minutes he didn't play against the Knicks on Tuesday night. Jason Tatum played the entire game in overtime. Kristaps Porzingis, who is not exactly a beacon of health, might I add, played the entire game and overtime. You saw the exact same thing from Drew Holiday and Derek White and all of the other Boston Celtics starters. Are we concerned with Boston about a compromised Jaylen Brown and what that may mean? I still would pick them to win the East. I still think they're the best team. But does that open the door, perhaps, to maybe the Celtics not having it as easy as they did a year ago when they basically steamrolled through the entire postseason?
I'm sensing some Knicks hope in your voice.
No, I wouldn't go that far. I think the Knicks can win.
I'm hearing it.
No. Here's what I would tell you about the Knicks. They would max win 2 games against the Celtics. And that's if things went really well for them. They got a brilliant Brunson game, let's say. The other way to beat the Celtics is 3-point shot and then missing a ton of them, which can happen with the variance that they shoot the 3-point shot. The Knicks are not beating them in a 7-game series the Monday. It's just they don't match up well enough. And they did some better things against Boston on Tuesday night. Yes, I would love to see the Knicks win the series. I would not in a million years take them plus 1.5 games. They will not get to a 7th game. No shot.
I don't even know if they will be plus 1.5. So what's the odds on that to be the finals, East Finals?
Not good, because you're going to have the Knicks as the 3 and you're going to have Boston as the 2.
No, I'm saying, what are the odds on Boston versus Cleveland?
Let's put it this way, Raheem. We're going to be stunned if it does. It's stunned if it doesn't happen, correct?
Yeah, I think the Eastern Conference is a 2-horse race. I mean, unless you're buying, the Knicks or the Pacers, I think this is a 2-horse race.
Maybe the Bucks after their 30-point comeback on Tuesday night.
Should I be happy, Raheem, that Detroit's going to fall into that 6? Because I'm not. I know. Well, in all seriousness, thinking about it now from a Knicks perspective, they were minus 430 when we looked on Monday for them to win in the first round, which should tell you something. They're going to be a pretty significant favorite against no matter who they match up with. Detroit, they've had a real fun season. They got a lot of young talent. They'll go into the postseason with nothing to lose. Is that a series, Raheem, that should scare me? Or is that a series? I know Detroit's played them well in the regular season. Let's not get nuts at that. Regular season and what it means for the postseason, be very, very careful with that. I am going to want some major, major blood if the Knicks go and lose the first round series to the Detroit Pistons. Is that fair, Raheem? I should be very, very angry.
I mean, that is very fair. There's no way I actually see that happening. Like, I think the East is very straightforward. Like, I'm not excited for the Eastern Conference postseason at all.
Well, because you have Cleveland, you have Boston, and you have questions about the other teams that are in the mix. Is there one, though, Raheem, out of New York, Indiana, Detroit, Milwaukee, that can make things interesting? I think you're going to tell me Indiana, right?
I think it's Indiana. I definitely think it's Indiana. I mean, look, as you saw against the Knicks, they've struggled with the Celtics and the Cavs all year long. And even in that game the other night, where it just felt like the Celtics, they're not giving it their all. Jaylen Brown is not playing most of the second half or the fourth quarter. Al Horford's not there. It felt like that was a game the Knicks needed to have just to build some confidence, and they still couldn't get it done. So, I don't know how you have any faith in the Knicks. I think the Indiana Pacers are probably the only other team who could probably push one of these teams. We saw the Pacers push the Celtics last year. So I think they're the team. And then obviously the Bucks without Damian Lillard, I think they're drawing dead.
I feel like it's going to be back to the old NBA, parlaying some favorites, some chalk, and just expecting them to get the job done. Some gentlemen's sweeps. I think that seems to be the way it's going to be in the East.
We shall see. Last year, kind of had a lot of that. Had a lot of short series. Knicks Sixers series that lived up to the billing. We had a lot of fun with that. The Cleveland-Orlando series went 7 games, but it was probably the ugliest 7-game series you're ever going to see.
Pistons Knicks be good?
I think it could be low-key a fun series. Detroit's got nothing to lose. They got absolutely no pressure on them.
Milwaukee would have been the team with a healthy Dame to make it interesting.
See, they can't guard.
And I know
they can't guard at all.
The metrics don't like them. I get that, but it's still Giannis.
Yeah, I mean, they still would have made it. I mean, you still got to deal with Giannis. Still dealing with Giannis and Dame for 7 games. That's tough. So it's just like, yeah, they would have been the team. But I've never been a Glenn fan. Y'all know how I feel about Glenn.
Listen, guy never wins in the postseason and yucks up leads.
You got to give him credit, though. He gets 3 wins.
Yeah, he likes, and hey, he wants you to know that he gets 3 wins and gets them on a consistent basis. That is very, very true. All right, boys, when we come back, the never ending, always evolving Ringer grab bag for East Coast Bias has a lot of assorted topics coming my way of the boys. It might have some NBA, may have some Masters, it may have some baseball, it may have something else that you don't even know about. You never know. That's coming your way right after this. Welcome back. It's grab bag time. Variety of different topics coming your way. Dabbundo, I know you don't like to bet golf, but we have the event of all events at Augusta over the next 4 days. The Masters, Scottie Scheffler is the favorite. Rory McIlroy is at 2. Jon Rahm is at 3. You have a lot of people making the case for Morikawa. DeChambeau had a great year in the majors last year. Doesn't usually play well at Augusta. He's around 20-1. Koepka's around 30-1. My question to you is this. I have made 3 Masters plays. I don't know if you get in any pools. I don't know if you get in any action, but you can grade these for me. I took Jon Rahm, who's won the tournament before, a little under 16-1. I took Will Zalatoris, who always seems to play well, and he's a juicy, juicy number. I got involved with him, and I also got involved with my guy Koepka because I absolutely love him at 30-1. If you wanted to invest in any of those tickets I just gave out, can I get you to bite on either Koepka, Zalatoris, or Jon Rahm?
It would probably be Koepka for me. I think some sharp people who do follow golf more closely than I do have been selling me on Zalatoris. I think I had a ticket on him last year, and I don't even know if he made the cut, but he ended up not being in the picture last season. But I did come up with my 5 tips to betting the Masters if you know nothing about golf.
Oh, please.
By someone
please
who
share.
knows nothing about golf. So the tournament's already underway here. But you know, first rule, you don't have to bet before the tournament.
You can get in any point, any moment, anytime. Yes, you can.
Absolutely.
That is true.
So sometimes you like to see how the field sets. Maybe give it a day. Hop in later. Now, if your guy that you wanted to bet on goes out and shoots 66, you're probably not going to be able to bet him anymore. But you don't have to bet early. My second and probably my most important rule is don't bet on Rory.
No. Totally agree.
No Rory rule. Look, Rory's a great golfer. I'm sure he'll win at some point, and I'll look dumb and we'll joke about it. I've never been there before. I've never been on Rory, but every tournament I go on and I hear everybody tell me how good Rory is and how at 6-1 he's the best bet to win the tournament. I'm just never going to be that guy. So when eventually he does win it, congrats to everybody else who bet him. I won't be there. I went on ESPN. 7 of the 13 people that they had give their pick all picked Rory. I'm like, this is a little crazy here, right? So number 3, betting on Scottie is boring. I don't get enjoyment out of it. He might win, but like he's 4-1, and all the sharp people tell me he's not as good as he's been, the God tier levels he was at last season. Number 4, first round leader is the best way to bet the Masters. I'm one of the most electric bets. Maybe I'm a little biased because I've been doing this race to 10 stuff. I need the instant gratification, but first round leader. I've only hit 2 golf bets in my life. And one of them was a first-round leader in 2021 at the Masters, Justin Rose. So I will be playing him.
What did that pay out? Like 40-1, 50-1?
50-1.
Nice.
So I'll be betting that every year until he retires. So I'll have some Justin Rose, probably a few other darts on the first-round leader as well. I took some Straka as well, Sepp Straka. Yeah. And then the last one, just beware when every single person is on the same long shot or underdog. You start to see the same names get thrown around. It's like, okay. What do you all know that the market doesn't? Probably nothing. So, those are my 5 tips.
Well, I appreciate those rules to live by. It doesn't mean I'm audibling out of any of my plays that I might have made.
No,
I don't know if any of them are trendy or not. But
well, you didn't say Rory, so
Cook,
you're good.
Koepka, Willie Z, get us home. I was not giving you Rory, and I was not giving you Scotty Scheffler. No fun. Totally boring. Okay, Raheem, I'm going to give you an opportunity to make a bet right now with my dime. You can take an NBA future on somebody to win the title other than the Thunder, the Celtics, the Cavaliers. Who's your choice?
Other than the Thunder, the Celtics, and the Cavaliers.
You have to make it right now. No playoff bracket. No nothing. What's the play?
I guess I'm going with the Warriors.
I think you're making the right choice. That's the bet I would make. At 17-1, that is 1,000% the bet I would make. I thought you might give me the Lakers, Raheem. That was the only one I thought you might throw me for a curveball with.
Actually, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. And I hate to do this, but the best bet from a numbers perspective is probably the Clippers.
Just because I get the value, but you know it's.
But I have so much scar tissue with James Harden and Kawhi, and I actually was on the Raptors a year where the Raptors won the title. So
where they actually were a juicy ticket. What were they, like 30-1, 25-1?
Yeah, but I mean, you guys have heard my Raptors story a ton. I'm not even gonna, break it down. But it was just like I made a lot of money on that series. So Kawhi Leonard has has a place in my heart. But I think since then he hasn't been the same guy, and I don't think he's reliable in the postseason at all. I just don't see him lasting 2 months of being healthy. I don't.
It's such a long playoffs. Yeah.
Dabbundo, this next one's for you. It's 2 weeks into Major League Baseball season. The team that has impressed you the most, other than the Los Angeles Dodgers, would be who?
Define impressed, because I don't even think I've been that impressed by the Dodgers. They starting. I made this joke on Twitter on Wednesday. Remember when they had the best rotation ever assembled?
I did hear that. Better than the '98 Yankees, they told me.
Yeah, the best ever. Game 13, they started Lance Wroblewski. In game 14, they started Landon Knack.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
So
that's what I thought, because they have guys that go 5 and 5 in the third innings, and a bunch of guys who, as talented as they are, get hurt all the time. Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow get hurt all the time.
It only took 2 weeks for us to be down to guys you barely heard of. And, Knack's been in the league. He pitched a lot last year, but it's pretty funny to see just how quickly things go downhill. And look, they lost 4 out of 5 in a tough road trip for them in Philly and in Washington. So I will say most impressive, I'll go NL West bullpens, all of them. The top 4 bullpens out there, Arizona, San Diego, San Francisco, and LA, have been so dominant. And I have a piece coming out on the Ringer either Thursday or Friday, today or Friday, that will be getting into kind of just how good those bullpens have been, and elite stuff, elite strikeout rates, keeping the ball in the ballpark. That's really been the key to that division being so good this season.
I like it. You couldn't give me a team, though. I thought you were going to give me the Texas Rangers.
The Rangers just lost Langford. He's going to the IL, which stinks because I was hyping them on Tuesday's show. But I would say Mets pitching's been underrated, and the bullpen's out west. I don't know if I have one team.
Fair enough. Raheem, this one's for you. I'm giving you a free wager. It's on my dime. Atlanta Braves to make the postseason, who just beat the Phillies. They're 2-8 on the year. They're still minus money to make the postseason. Will that happen?
I'm going to say no.
Wow. So you're telling me no? You take that money and bet the plus 150. Okay.
I want to take the plus 150. I think you're going to get it. And I'm saying that because I think you're going to get a better price later. I truly believe that. And one of the reasons why I believe that is because I think either the Mets or the Phillies are going to win a division, and I think they're going to be one of those wild card teams ultimately. And I think at some point you're going to get a better number. I think this is a bet.
It depends on the West, right? We were just talking about the bullpens out there. The one thing is they beat Philly, but Chris Sale didn't look like Cy Young Chris Sale in that game. If he's just good Chris Sale and not elite Chris Sale, their starting rotation is a little shakier than I think people realize, especially with Lopez going down, and as good as Schwellenbach and Strider could be when he comes back. It's not a lot of depth there.
Still talking about a guy coming off at Tommy John, too.
Like, for the way they started out, I don't think you can lay a price for them to make the postseason at this point in time.
I understand that. I understand that. And listen, I did pick them to go to the World Series at the beginning of the year. I'm maybe cautiously optimistic they're going to find their way back. Okay, Dabbundo. I don't bet and watch soccer. I don't think Raheem, you don't get involved with soccer, do you, Raheem?
I've never watched soccer in my life.
There you go. Okay,
Wow.
That's all I need to know. Dabbundo, give me something that I might like over the course of this weekend to bet.
All right, so we did this on the Ringer Soccer Show last week. We did what we call, Bill does the League Pass rankings where they rank all the teams they're most excited to watch. We did the Peacock rankings, which is where the Premier League is on TV most of the year. And I ranked Crystal Palace as my number one Peacock team for the rest of the season because I've really enjoyed how they played in transition the last 2 months. Since January 1st, they have the second best underlying numbers in all of the English Premier League, which is wild given, it's been a weird year for some of the top teams, but still second is crazy. And they're playing against Manchester City, who have been the multi-time champions now, who are in the midst of a downturn, having a bad season. Their best striker's out. Their best defensive midfielder's been out all year, and they've fallen off a cliff. So I'm going to go with Crystal Palace. You could take them +1 on the Asian line. You could take them double chance, which is probably around +170 on the which is to win or draw. Or if you want to get really crazy, you could take them on the money line up there, 5-1 against City this weekend. I think they're pretty live at the Etihad on Saturday morning. I
like it. We'll put that in the memory bank, Dabbundo, and I'll remind you if it's a winner or loser on Saturday. That's all I need to know. Just get me a
Sounds
winner.
good.
That's all I need to know. We got a lot more coming your way. We have our best bets still to come. I will give you a couple more plays I like at Augusta. And if there's a betting angle maybe we should be looking ahead to with next 2 weeks NFL draft still on the horizon. We'll come right back. Boys, in 2 weeks, it's hard to believe the NFL draft will be here. Raheem, I know we're going to dive into the props as we get closer to it. We're not giving anything out yet. But if there is a storyline that you're kind of monitoring, maybe it's something you think we can capitalize on. Maybe it's just something that you're interested in as we move closer to the draft. Obviously, in my backyard, it's what happens at number 3 with the Giants. Is it Shedeur Sanders? Is it Travis Hunter? Is it Abdul Carter? And are we going to see Shedeur Sanders maybe fall down draft boards? If there's a narrative you're looking to be all over or to follow, Raheem, what is it in 2 weeks with this draft?
I mean, it's definitely Shedeur Sanders. I think that is the biggest one. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of teams itching to draft him, top 10 or whatever. So I want to see how far he falls. One of my friends, Sean King, I think he actually doesn't, he doesn't even think he's a first round pick. So I want to see how far he falls. I want to see what team he goes to. That's what I'm most interested in.
I think it's the story, because you could get some crazy prices here. You could see does a team start to get desperate for a quarterback? Does a team who maybe has sort of a quarterback, but not really a quarterback, make a move up for a guy like Sanders? Or do they wait and say, hey, we can get him in the 20s? Those are the kind of interesting questions that I think are still to be answered. And I'm sure everybody will be watching. Where does he visit? Who does he meet with? And all those things. And the odds will shift and bounce all over the place on the rumors based on what happens over the next few weeks. I think that's one. The Genty thing is interesting to me. So, we saw the NFL story this year was Eagles and Ravens going, super run heavy with Saquon and Henry and dominating the league. And does that cause teams to maybe think differently about the top tier running back and Genty? Does he go higher than maybe anticipated? Because I think a lot of people expect him to go to the Raiders, but does somebody trade up for him? Does somebody make the bet that the Eagles did on Saquon? Would they say, hey, we think we can get a lot of value out of a top tier running back? I think it would be a mistake because I think so much of what makes the Eagles and the Ravens effective is their quarterbacks, their O-lines, their schemes. But, it's a copycat league. So I think that's interesting too, the Genty angle and where he goes at the top of this draft here, because a lot of people really like the guy.
And it sure seems like he's a surefire top 10 pick.
Are we sure he's a
rumors.
surefire, pick? Because, when I watched him in the bowl game against Penn State, it wasn't like he was just super dominant.
right?
Yeah,
But,
tough
the
matchup,
odds,
though.
The odds
Tough
say
matchup.
he's like minus 150 to go to the Raiders, which I need to check in with Austin Gale and see how he's feeling about that.
Well, let me ask you, Raheem, would that be a pick if the Cowboys make you're going to be upset with?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be happy with that.
Okay. Fair enough.
I think at this point in time, when it comes to running backs, I think you can. It's nice to have the top tier running back, but I don't think you need to draft him like very high. I mean, especially with the Cowboys, I think defense is an issue for the Cowboys at this point in time.
When you have other needs, and that offensive line too for Dallas, which is clearly not the sort of strength that it's been in years past. But yeah, Shedeur Sanders, Genty, Hunter, Carter, a lot of interesting subplots as we move closer and closer to the end of the month, and some franchise-altering decisions potentially await. All right, we'll come back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Best bets. Giving the boys an open forum. I don't know where they're taking this. Is it a game? Is it a future? Is it something off the beaten path? I have no idea. Best bets. East Coast bias. Coming right back. Best bets. Raheem, you're in the lab. You're not ready yet with these NBA games. I know you'll be ready next week for the play-ins. You better be, right, big boy?
Yeah, I will be. I mean, there's no lines as we're, recording this right now for the Thursday game, so I can't give you guys anything.
I appreciate that. Full transparency right there. Dabbundo, best bet. I don't know what you're giving me, but I'm intrigued. Let's go.
We talked about the game already a couple segments ago. Let's go Crystal Palace, plus 165, double chance. So that's to win the game or draw the game against the champions for now, Man City, on Saturday. Bright and early, JJ, 7:30 a.m. You win the bet before your tee time.
I wish I was teeing off. The weather is going to be absolutely dreadful in the Northeast, so that will not be happening on Saturday. So maybe I'll dial in. Here's what I'm going to do, guys. I'm going to parlay a couple of top 20s, and let's have a little bit of fun here. Brooks Koepka, who I gave out at 30-1, going to parlay him with Colin Morikawa and John Rahm. Let's get them all in the top 20. That on FanDuel, going to give you a nice plus 316 payout. So Morikawa, Rahm, Koepka, get me in the top 20. Let's go. Let's enjoy the Masters. For Dabbundo, Raheem, JJ signing off. Enjoy your Thursday. Boys are out. We'll be back on Monday. Be good, everybody.